First meeting in the final round of the negotiations of the power purchase agreement that was signed in 2016. As you all may recall, power purchase agreement was signed between Côte d'Ivoire Energy's seller and LEC, ETSA, EDG as buyers of 27 megawatts of firm energy by each utility. TRANSCO CLSG and the three utilities enter into transmission service agreement, which among other aspects define transmission charges, losses, allocations, and payments of security arrangements. The total of 83 megawatts split equally between the three utilities was required to make the CLSG viable based on initial estimates of the project in 2012. It was also agreed in 2016 that these agreements will be finalized as the project moves closer towards commissioning. Ladies and gentlemen, despite numerous challenges the project has encountered, I'm happy to inform you that with the support of the governments of the four CLSG countries, the board, and the CLSG donors, the project is now expected to be commissioned in June 2020. Unfortunately, we've been forced to move the commissioning date from March 31st, 2020 to June 2020 due to circumstances beyond our control, which includes, among others, the difficult terrain and poor condition of roads. Quite recently, the outbreak of the coronavirus in China has affected the movement of key Chinese experts who are to undertake critical works and pre-commissioning tests on substations in Liberia and Sierra Leone, as well as SVC contracts in Côte d'Ivoire. Nevertheless, we need to conclude all the essential arrangements that will enable parties to begin efficient and sustainable trade of electricity on the CLSG transmission line based on sound commercial agreements that are fair, equitable, and which also conform to IRARA standards for the electricity market in the ECOWAS sub-region. To this end, the objective of the final negotiation is to review the power purchase agreement and transmission service that were adopted and signed in November of 2016, and to align these agreements with the model agreements developed by IRARA. Based on the outcome of the World Bank PPA and TSA workshop, the main issues that are to be addressed today include, but not necessarily limited to, 1. Discuss and agree on energy capacity, volumes, and energy price between seller and buyer. 2. Discuss and agree on transmission tariffs for TSA. Discuss and agree on form and structure of the payment guarantees. And finally, discuss and agree on the annexes to the power purchase agreement and the transmission service agreement. We've also received the first draft of the interconnection agreement that will be shared with the technical experts of the utilities and discussed at the technical meeting that will be held in Abidjan in March of 2020. Ladies and gentlemen, typically the initiator to set and adjust tariffs and define long-term tariff policy will come from the regulatory body, IRARA. Nevertheless, consistent with Article 7.2, the international treaty empowers TRANSCO CLSG to collect the tariffs or charges for the connections to use the connection to and use of the interconnection line on a basis that permits the company to maintain financial viability and meet its financial obligations. The international treaty defines financial viability as the financial balance between costs and revenues at any point in that time that enables the company to remain viable as a special purpose company carrying out the CLSG project, as reflected in the financial model that the member states have agreed upon. The tariff should at a minimum enable the company to A, meet operating expenses, that is including but not limited to expenses related to the operation and maintenance of the interconnection line, international staff and local staff and insurance, debt service payments, and where applicable, adequate returns on equity. And finally, maintain a minimum cumulative debt service coverage ratio of 1.5. Initial results from updating TRANSCO CLSG business plan indicate that revenues from the early years of operation may not be sufficient enough to cover operations and maintenance costs. Debt service that includes repayment of the loan or loans and interest and administrative expenses that include staff cost. The repayment of the principal for IDA and AFDB starts in 2023 respectively, after the grace period of 10 years. While the repayment of ERD has already started since July of 2019 after 7-year grace period. Ladies and gentlemen, it is therefore very important for parties in this negotiation to provide firm commitments to trade on the CLSG transmission line and agree on transmission tariffs that will ensure TRANSCO CLSG financial viability in the medium and long term. In the short term, TRANSCO CLSG envisages that there will be a big financial gap between revenues and cost. Management intends to engage CLSG countries and donors to agree upon suitable strategies to close the gap, while pursuing opportunities to expand the national grid, grow industrial and mining loads in Liberia, Sierra Leone, and Guinea, as well as improve trade of electricity through the CLSG transmission line. As you may recall, the CLSG model exhibits a spirit of mutual cooperation and collaboration among the stakeholders in the 4 countries. And it is my hope that parties will continue in this same spirit of collaboration during the negotiations to ensure that all parties are treated fairly and that benefits and responsibilities are clearly defined, understood, and agreed upon collectively and as far as possible. Finally, as we begin these negotiations, I would like to take a moment to acknowledge the invaluable support and unwavering commitment of WAP, the governments of Cote d'Ivoire, Liberia, Sierra Leone, and Guinea, the board of directors, the 4 national utilities, and the 4 CLSG donors to the CLSG project and regional integration. The CLSG is about to bring light to the lives of millions, and this could never have been possible without your contribution. We are grateful and sincerely thank you for your relentless efforts. I also want to particularly thank the World Bank for their support through WAP in the recruitment of financial and legal experts who are assisting us today throughout these final negotiations to adapt the final versions of the PPA and the TSAs for signature.